Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Blessthefall, Gallows, out September 5th on Rise Records. The album has 10 tracks, 34 minutes in length, and this is the band's 7th full-length studio album. They are an American metalcore band. Once you start listening to this album, you're going to find that the overall design really feels like a set list with the right ebbs and flows in order to make the album as dynamic, as engaging, as entertaining as possible. And when you consider the individual songs and the overall album design, I really feel like this way, taking that set list approach, you really make the best of two worlds. You still give each and every single song its own room, its own space to really explode, to showcase everything that you can on that individual track basis, and then putting them together in this fashion, you give incredible quality to what the overall album experience is all about. Once you get to the sound of the record, this is a very modern metalcore sounding album. What I mean by that is that it has great production behind it, a lot of electronic elements to emphasize certain sounds, to emphasize certain atmospheres, definitely helping from that front to create a much better backdrop, really framing the overall energy and also the emotion that is within each and every single song, not only represented in the lyrics and the vocal performance, but really helping the atmosphere of that emotion come through in a much better way, not necessarily driving the record forward, or not even necessarily putting a massive fingerprint on the album. This is not a super electronic sounding album. It's just nuances, add-ons, textures that help the album feel a little bit more complete, a little bit more full sound-wise, and I really enjoy that. That's definitely a more modern metalcore experience from that front. Also having the ability to have this extreme side of the record, both musically and vocally, and then the more melancholic, melodic side coexist in perfect harmony within individual songs and even from song to song. All of these attributes really scream to me a more modern approach to metalcore, where there's a lot more emotion built into the record, into the songs, and it's not just about how heavy or how many breakdowns or how heavy the breakdowns are. Even though all of those elements are there, there's a lot more to emphasize. It creates a much overall richer sound experience with a lot more textures for the listener to peel and digest and really enjoy from track to track. So I enjoy this modern take, this modern approach to the genre. Really well designed, really well executed, still giving enough room to the individualities and specifically the drums and guitars. I thought the guitar sound on this album was excellent, very rich, adding to the overall richness of the sound itself, but an album that doesn't feel one-dimensional as far as the guitars are concerned, not just in terms of the melody, the drive, the heaviness, but even in terms of the breakdowns. It's an album that is very cohesive, feeling very natural, and the guitars really bring that natural source into the forefront. Also having a more live experience even on the guitar sound really helps this album have the right levels of energy and impact. The drums really help with the width of the record, and I think that's an important element, specifically for an album like this where there's some electronic elements playing nuances and helping the atmosphere. Having the drums offer some depth and some consistency, and even in some cases some thickness to what the overall sound is, makes the record a lot more robust. It doesn't feel as narrow, it doesn't feel like it's just moving in one direction. It definitely offers a lot more to the album, and I felt like the drums, while not necessarily overpowering the listener or even overpowering the experience, had a great impact on the overall robust nature of the individual songs and therefore the overall robust nature of this record. Once you get into the vocals, I think it's easy to say that there are two sides to the same coin. One side is the more clean, melancholic, melodic approach where that emotional level bubbles to the surface. The other is the harsh, heavier side of the vocal range where you get a different kind of emotion. You get more exteriorization of aggression, exteriorization of intensity, not as much as introspective as it is with the clean vocals and the overall clean vocal performance. Putting the two together, it adds to that overall modern metalcore sound that the record has, and they play really well with those two spectrums, with those two approaches, in order to create not just ebbs and flows vocally, but to add to what the music is already providing, making this a very solid, a very clear sounding, like I said, a very live record. But in the studio, as far as Blessthefall is concerned, I think this album really checks all the boxes for the fan base. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Venom, one of the heavy bangers on this record for sure, my favorite track on the album. I just love the amazing guitar sound, the overall vocal performance. It's a track that has a lot of heaviness, that has a lot of aggression, specifically in the verses. The chorus a little bit more melancholic, a little bit more melodic, with the clean vocals playing a more important and defining role. I also like how some of that clean aspect of the album, that more melodic, melancholic aspect of the album, bleeds into the verses, allowing for a much better sequence, allowing for the aggression that also exists in those verses to feel even more aggressive, to feel even more intense. So this makes the track very dynamic but not jolty, very smooth as far as the transitions from one to the other. And then it has a great breakdown, one of my favorites of the album. It hits really hard, but it hits in the overall flow of the song, so it doesn't stop the track, it doesn't reset the track, it just adds, or emphasizes I should say, how aggressive and how heavy the overall song really is. Then you have Gallows. This is a heavy track from the start, and you can say it's heavy both from a musical standpoint but also from a vocal delivery as well. The chorus obviously dips a little bit, loses a little bit of that intensity, loses a little bit of that aggression. Obviously with clean vocals you also change that dynamic, or you change that perception that the song has. But overall is a track that carries its emotion up front. Even in its heavier moments, it still feels very emotionally driven, it still feels very emotionally connected. It's a track with a lot of layers, a lot of texture, a really rich guitar sound all around, and I think the richness of the guitar sound makes the song a lot more engaging, makes the song more fluid. It gives different perspectives to the listener. It allows the song to not feel like it's just moving in a single direction. It has a lot more different paths, if you will. So I really enjoy that aspect of the track. I also enjoyed some of the backing vocals that they used, because I felt they gave another level of excellence to the overall vocal performance, but it also makes the overall vocals feel richer to match the overall richness of sound that already exists within the song. Last but definitely not least, the closing track, The Ends With Us. This Ends With Us is a really important song from my perspective. It's a perfect closer for this album, because when you look at all the different momentums, when you look at the sound, the vocal performance, even the lyrical content to a certain degree, really showcases or becomes a snapshot, a clear snapshot of everything you heard on this album up until that point. So this track really becomes the conclusion of the record from all parameters, musically, lyrically, vocally. This track really wraps everything up. It has a lot of aggression, it has a lot of intensity, has a lot of drive. It's a little bit of a roller coaster ride within itself, which is a microcosms of the overall roller coaster ride that the album is. So like I said, this track really closes off the album well, because it kind of resumes everything that you've been experienced in a single song. This is it, Blessthefall with Gallows, out September 5th on Rise Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, guys.